Yo guys, so I'm coming with you with a two-part special today with your YouTube educational short. So we're going to go with stress and digestion because they correlate quite well or quite not so well. Terrible English there. Anyway, so I'm going to start with stress. This is such a paramount topic when it comes to physique development, when it comes to progression, to be fair, when it comes to anything. And I think the biggest sort of mistake that a lot of us make, and one that I fell into when I first started, is that we don't see stress from all avenues, or we don't appreciate that there may be avenues of stress that is impacting us and we're not aware of it. I think a lot of people associate stress with the typical responses that we'd associate it with, whether that be anxiety, whether that be the external factors of work, arguments, physical acts that we can actually see and almost touch. We associate that with our high levels of stress. Now, bodybuilding will be and always be a high stress environment, whether we like it or not, whether we manage our variables or not. There's many parts to it that are constantly causing stress. So we've got the typical responses that you could imagine, which would be work, commitments, finances, the typical day-to-day stresses that we'd have. But we also have to appreciate that what we are actually requiring our body to do is going to have the same level of stress. We just can't see it. We just can't feel it. We don't experience it, so to say, in physical form. We're not having an argument there and you're not, being physically abused, but there is still the same element of stress on the body and it still has the same physiological effects on the body. So, Brad, what do you mean? What are you going on about? So when it comes to bodybuilding, when it comes to physique development, training obviously is the biggest one that we have to appreciate here. Training is an incredibly stressful time for the body. You're pounding your body with weight. You're requiring your body to petition nutrients to support that training environment, whether that be oxygen, whether it be nutrients, whether it be blood, whether it be the intracellular kind of focus that's happening from pump, from ATP production. There's so many things that are going on within the body and physiological ranges that we don't see because it's happening inside. Also, it's a very taxing time for the body. Your heart rate's up, blood pressure's up. Everything about that environment is an incredibly stressful time. That still has the same physiological impacts of stress as, say, an argument, a fight, anxiety, panic. The body cannot differentiate of, actually, this is something that's going to benefit us, so therefore we'll ignore that level of stress or we'll ignore those hormones that are being released. It still causes stress. It still impacts the physique. It still impacts internal and changes within the physique. So we have to appreciate that we need time to come down from that stress. We need time to relieve that stress and clear it. Same with digestion, which is going to lead on to our second part. You're forcing your body into periods of time of high levels of stress, whether that's an improvement phase or whether that's a diet phase. An improvement phase, obviously, we're eating in abundance. We're constantly having meals every 2 to 3 hours. Some of us are having to push calories up excessively high. That's stress on the digestive system. That's stress on organs. That's stress on the pancreas. It's stress on the kidneys. It's stress on everything because your body is having to digest and utilize these nutrients continuously through the day. I'm not sure if any of you experience it, but sleep within an off season can become a little bit touch and go. You wake up feeling very groggy, or you struggle to wake up in the morning because your body is under high levels of stress. Your body is constantly digesting food, constantly repairing, constantly growing. You're still coming down from the effects of the stress from training. We have to understand and appreciate and also respect those levels of stress. And if we don't address them, and if we don't give ourselves adequate rest or maintenance phases or periods off from those high levels of stress, we'll burn out. And you may have experienced this when all of a sudden you wake up in the morning, you just don't want to train. You feel like you have no love or no drive or no excitement to train. And these are the effects of that stress. These are the effects of that fatigue. And you might look at it and go, well, I don't feel stressed. I don't feel anxious. Everything's all hunky-dory in life at the moment. That's because we haven't addressed or acknowledged the fact that stress comes from all different angles. It doesn't have to be a physical form. It doesn't have to be this negative environment that we associate with arguments or fights or anxiety. Stress can come in all sorts of form, and it will still have the same impact and same effects on the physique. So even though our lives, circumstances, social circles may all be in order, we still can't negate the fact that stress will come from all avenues. We can't, even if you hid in a room wrapped in bubble wrap with protective walls, the likeliness is you're still going to have effects of stress because you have a thought process. How many of us sit there and overthink a situation or panic ourselves into a thought process, which then creates stress and anxiety? It's exactly the same thing. We can't get away from it. It is always going to be there. So we have to put in periods or precautions or implications to make sure we have downtime to come away from that stress. So this could be a deload, this could be diet breaks, this could be potentially fasting. There's so many things and avenues that we can take into consideration that can help manage those levels of stress. If we don't manage those levels of stress, then you are going to feel the negative effects from it. This is going to be fatigue, central nervous system fatigue, poor appetite, poor digestion. You'll find that you could potentially get bloating. Your enjoyment for the session will become massively diminished. Your pumps within the session will become non-existent. Aches, pains, potential injuries. There's so many things that will lead on to negative effects. And I think this is where a lot of people potentially get lost or confused or don't understand where that's coming from. And also where a lot of people lose their love and enjoyment for the process because they're thinking that something's wrong, or they're thinking that they just don't enjoy it anymore, when in actual fact they haven't taken the time to acknowledge that stress is part of the process. We can't ignore it, we can't get away from it. We just have to manage it the best as possible. And this is why having a structured plan or structured periodization within your training, regular deloads every 4, 5, 6 weeks, whichever one is more suited to you, having that period of time, a break away from it, or having prolonged periods of a maintenance phase where you train at lower volumes, lower intensity, lower calories, lower PEDs, because again, these are all things that are going to impact and cause stress and fatigue on the body. If you don't have those and you're constantly driving at 100 miles an hour, it's going to burn out. You need to take that time to wash away that fatigue, wash away that stress, wash away the inflammation. And then you'll find that your performance will increase, your enjoyment will increase, digestion will increase. And typically speaking, within this time, you'll probably find that you actually have to do less rather than more, because the body will be responding much more improved. There'll be much more optimal gains. You'll find that potentially you won't have to push calories so high because nutrient absorption will be better, training performance will be better, recovery will be better, mood will be better. You'll find your enjoyment within the session will be much more improved. So therefore, your drive for that session will become higher. So guys, that's the first part of the video. That's stress. We're going to move on to digestion, because that's usually the first thing that goes to shit, excuse the pun, when stress and implications are too high and they're not managed well. But much love, stay blessed, and stay tuned for part 2.